June 2017. This is a special edition of Live with Philip Alexander. The time is 8 o'clock on the dot. The reason for having this special edition this evening is to address a matter that is now burning up the public space, and that is all of the lies or the inconsistencies surrounding this whole matter concerning the children of the Attorney General Faris Al-Rawi and the guns in Kumutu. Now, from the very start, the Attorney General has been making a mockery of this thing, and I had put out an entire list of inconsistencies from the start, and I should have pulled that up, but I was done in humor. The reality that we're facing now is not funny at all, because some very, very high office holders are being brought into disrepute. And we may have, before this is over, others other than Faris Al-Rawi having to leave their position and maybe even face investigation for misbehavior in public office. Tonight, we have the Freedom of Information request surrounding the Board of Inquiry into the matter. We have the response from the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force signed by the Chief of Defense Staff, Smart, and we have a release put out this afternoon by former Chief of Defense Staff, Kenrick Maraj, disputing everything that was said in that response. This is a serious, serious situation, and we need to address this now. While we wait for some more people to join us.
One man on a pulpit preach, another one in the classroom teach, another one on the TV say, oh my, it will be lovely today.
It is not normal for us to have a Sunday night video, so share it with your friends and let them know that we're here. Thank you.
Lady whisper to me, be careful of what you hear and you see. Half of what you see is just illusion. Most of what you hear is not the truth. Half of what you see is just illusion. Most of what you hear is not the truth. The things they tell you will be convincing. It has no value and it's deceiving. You must be wise to stay out of the fire. Those who look straight in the eyes of a liar.
Right. Spread the word. Starting in 1 minute.
Somebody say that the world go end. Another one called she good friend. You hear the story, you'll hear it too. I want to know if this thing really true. It says brimstone and fire for we, and everyone will be enemy. A million years this place lasts for sure. Bet you life it lasts a billion and more. Half of what you see is just illusion. Most of what you hear is not the truth. Half of what you see is just illusion. Most of what you hear is not the truth. They would mislead.
Okay, let's deal with this. From the top down, I want to share something with you. You understand the seriousness of the situation. The laws of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Military Training Prohibition Act, Chapter 1504, Act 14 of 1996. And I want to give you some information quick. An act to prohibit the training, drilling, and equipping of persons with firearms, ammunition, artillery, or explosive, and the practice of military exercises otherwise than permitted under any written law, to increase the penalty for unlawfully wearing a police uniform and for related matters. In this act, ammunition means ammunition for a firearm of any kind: a shell, a cartridge case, bomb, hand grenade, bullet, or light missile, whether or not containing an explosive or gas or chemical, or whether or not intended to be discharged from or by any gun or other propelling or releasing instrument or mechanism other than missiles, which can be used only for the purpose of extinguishing fires. Part of a shell, cartridge case, bomb, hand grenade, bullet, missile Fuse, percussion cap, priming cap, adapted or prepared for the purpose of causing the propulsion or of exploding of a shell bomb, a bullet clip or cartridge clip. Artillery means cannon, howitzer, mortar or flamethrower. Firearm means a lethal barreled weapon from which ammunition can be discharged and includes a component part of or an accessory to such weapon, designed or adapted to diminish the noise or flash caused by firing the weapon, but does not include an air rifle, air gun or air pistol of a type prescribed by order made by the President and of a caliber so prescribed. Military exercise means an exercise, maneuver, or other tactical campaign of a training nature ordinarily carried out by the military forces. I share that information because you need to hear this. Except with the written authorization of the President, no person shall, and this is 3, section 1, except with the written authorization of the President, no person shall organize, manage, control, train, drill, equip, or take part in the organizing, control, training, or drilling of another person in the use of firearms, ammunition, artillery, or explosives, or in the practice of military exercises. Solicit or provide financial or other support for the management, control, training, or drilling, or equipping of another person in the use of firearms, ammunition, artillery, or explosives, or in the practice of military exercises. A very serious matter. A person who contravenes this section commits an offense and is liable on summary conviction to a fine of $50,000 and to imprisonment for 5 years. On conviction on indictment, to a fine of $200,000 and to imprisonment for a period not exceeding 20 years. A person, section 5, a person commits an offense who, for the purpose of engaging in subversive activities, takes part in organizing, controlling, managing, training, drilling, or equipping other persons, any meeting or assembly at any places or premises. A person commits an offense who, for the purpose of engaging in subversive activities, take part in any military exercise. In any proceedings under Section 5, proof of things done out of words written, spoken, or published, whether or not in the presence of any party to the proceedings by any person assisting. This is a serious breach that took place when whoever took it upon themselves to give high-powered, state-owned rifles to the children of the Attorney General at an army base. And where this began led us to this. In today's Guardian, they released the statement, and I will share that statement that was given to Senator Wayne Sturge, who asked for information based on the board investigation into what took place in the Army. Now, none of what we discuss in here has anything to do with the police investigation, which is supposed to be underway. But this is the Army's investigation. Al-Rawi, I have no issues to answer. Speaking on the issue last night, Al-Rawi questioned, the reason I'm giving you this, and I gave you the act, is so that you understand when we get down into the meat of the matter, how serious an issue we're dealing with. Speaking on the issue last night, Al-Rawi questioned why Sturge or the United National Congress did not use the information to clear the air. I am not aware of any correspondence coming from the Army. I have never been interviewed by them or anybody else. I maintain that Rudal Modilal is intimately aware that he has a lot of cocoa in the sun, and that I therefore am not surprised that he would have very pointed fabrications against me. Now, when you hear what transpired between the document he is referring to and what flowed from that, you'll realize he's lying again. And it's pure misdirection. It's pure theater and distraction, trying to distract from the reality. Whether or not Rudal Modilal have cocoa in the sun have nothing to do with Faris Al-Rawi children having high-powered rifles on an army base. But this is the game that he has played forever, and I think that it has caught up with him. The issue of the security of my children is not a negotiable item for me. It never will be, and I will continue to maintain that course. More distraction, more deflection, I am confident that I have no issues to answer, he said. Now, I want to take this back because the Attorney General knows that there are no variances in law that allowed for his children to do that. Other people have said that they were that the children showed a wholesome curiosity when they were on the base, so they let them handle the guns. You broke the law. That is a crime. You could get prosecuted for that. Others have said that in case the AG and his family are attacked, the children should know what a gun is in case they have to pick it up. There is no allowance for that in law. So you broke the law again. You're supposed to be prosecuted for that because nobody else gets that easy way. Nobody else gets to pass that as an excuse. Anybody else's children found photographed with high-powered rifle in a lot of trouble. I find it astounding that the UNC could have been sitting on this letter for so long. Clearly they are embarrassed, Al-Rawi said. Al-Rawi said one of the issues that the UNC tried to raise was that SMART facilitated the use of the gun range as a favor in order to get benefits later on. Again, more distraction. Don't look at me. Don't look at the laws broken. Don't look at my children with the guns. Let's now look at SMART. Was SMART trying to do nonsense or not? All of that has nothing to do, and I want Trinidad and Tobago to focus on Faris Al-Rawi and his children, and also the head of the Children's Authority who dropped the mic here because they were supposed, they flubbed their lines. They were supposed to take action here because these are minor children, but we will come back to that. Al-Rawi said one of the issues that is that they tried to facilitate, that SMART facilitated the use of the gun range as a favor in order to get benefits later on. The allegations have been entirely unseated because I recall they had a very pointed attack on Brigadier SMART. This is the Guardian asking Faris Al-Rawi about his children, guns, Komuto, and if a law was broken. When it turned out that it was Major General Maraj, now he threw Major General Maraj under the bus. Look how many people's names and reputations are going to be smeared and destroyed in pursuit of a cover-up as to why Faris Al-Rawi's children were in possession of high-powered rifles on an army base. It is a web of lies and deceit, and I will not be distracted from my purpose of pursuing wrongdoing in this country or developing the laws of Trinidad and Tobago. Faris Al-Rawi, that is not your job. It is not your job to pursue wrongdoing in this country. Again, you fail. Because that is the police's job. And when the police find action for there to be prosecution, that is the Director of Public Prosecution's job. That is not the job of the Attorney General. So again, your distraction and your misdirection falls flat. I will not be distracted from my purpose of pursuing wrongdoing in this country, developing the laws of Trinidad and Tobago for the best of the citizens of this country. Al-Rawi said all of the laws that he's done so far have been tossed by the court. I expect that I have no friends in the UNC. I show the UNC. No, you lied, because I was going to say I show the UNC. I have no friends in the PNM. But I have demonstrated that financiers and investors of the PNM and the UNC exchanging favors. So all of this could just be nonsense to distract the population. But I am asking, if laws were broken here, why is the Attorney General still sitting in that position? Let's get down to the meat of the matter. This is what was sent to the army by Wayne Daniels Church. I have a copy of the actual request. It is dated the 27th of March, 2017. Brigadier General Rodney Smart, Chief of Defense Staff, Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force Headquarters, Airways Rule, Shagarabas. Dear Brigadier General, request for a copy of the report of the Board of Inquiry, which was convened by the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force in October 2016, following the media releases and publication of what appears to be pictures of children handling high-powered weapons belonging to the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force at dates and places unknown, and the circumstances surrounding those allegations. I am an opposition senator in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, and I hereby exercise my right conferred by Section 11 of the Freedom of Information Act, Chapter 2202, to make the request for the caption report. In making this request, I am also exercising my right and legitimate interest in upholding the Constitution and the rule of law, a right that is conferred upon each citizen by the preamble of the Constitution and has been recognized by the courts. Background. The matter to which this request relates was raised in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago by Member of Parliament Dr. Ral Munilal. It originated when pictures of children in possession of high-powered weapons surfaced in the public domain. It was alleged at the time that the children in the pictures were the children of the Attorney General, Faris Al-Rawi. This was later confirmed by the Prime Minister in Parliament and by the media. This matter is one of grave and serious concern and a matter of great public interest, having regard to the seriousness of the allegation that children of the Attorney General attended an army base under the jurisdiction of the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force with their father and were allowed to have in their possession high-powered weapons belonging to the Defense Force in the presence of the Attorney General and members of the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force. I need you all to hold for 1 second, please. Hello. I'm actually live right now, but I'm asking you a question. You read the release from Kenrick Maraj? I would like you to watch the live videos going on right now and call me back if you want to say something on the matter. Bye. I want to tell you, that was former Minister of National Security Gary Griffith, so I'm not trying to be rude. I was trying to reach him all day, and he just realized what's going on, and he doesn't have the information as yet, so he's going to take it from me, and he is going to call back if he thinks there are grounds for him to make a statement on this matter, okay? The matter is we're picking up where we left off. The matter is one of grave and serious concern and a matter of great public interest, having regard to the seriousness of the allegation that the children of the Attorney General attended an army base under the jurisdiction of the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force with their father and were allowed to have in their possession high-powered weapons belonging to the Defense Force in the presence of the Attorney General and members of the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force. It raises serious questions about whether persons belonging to the Defense Force were complicit in the execution of their duties. Whether persons in the Defense Force were coerced into breaching settled practice and procedures because of the individuals involved. It raises issues of whether the children of high-ranking government officials were treated in a preferential manner by persons in the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force, and what was the reward for such treatment. You see the questions that arise? But most importantly, it raises the issue of whether the Attorney General abused his powers as Attorney General while at the army base with his children. The matter was of such grave public importance that the Honorable Prime Minister made statements in the Parliament on this incident, seeking to provide justification and a rational explanation for the irrational and ex facie unlawful actions of those involved. There have been several statements made by the Attorney General himself on this matter, seeking to absolve himself of responsibility from this most serious matter. To date, the Attorney General has not admitted that the children in the pictures were his own. This is even more disturbing, because if the children were not his, the inevitable question that arises is, who were the parents of those children and why were they at the base? Subsequent to the matter being brought into the public domain, the Chief of Defense Staff established a board of inquiry to investigate the facts and circumstances surrounding how children handling high-powered weapons belonging to the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force came into possession of those weapons at dates and places unknown, and how the pictures of those children were taken while they were in possession of the high-powered weapons on an army base. It was expected that the terms of the inquiry would have included whether any procedures or practices were breached, and if so, who were responsible and who were to be held accountable. The matter is even more serious because of the individuals involved and the public perception that children of the Attorney General were being treated differently from ordinary citizens who would be the subject of criminal sanctions were they found to be in possession of such weapons. I want to take you back to Faris Al-Rawi's statement where he said that he will not be distracted. He said he will not be distracted from my purpose of pursuing wrongdoing in this country. He said he will not be distracted from that. If these are not his children, wrongdoing was done. Why didn't he pursue that? I read the act to you, at least one of the laws that were breached. The application under the Freedom of Information Act. You have to take all of this information so you know all of what is going on. So the bacchanal could end and we could focus on the issues. The courts of this country have recognized that the object of the Freedom of Information Act is to make information freely accessible to the public with a view to promoting transparency and accountability in the decision-making of public authorities. It is an important piece of legislation in a post-colonial society in which bureaucrats have historically been reluctant to expose their decisions to the glare of public scrutiny. Freedom of access to information is also important in a society that is politically polarized along ethnic lines, and in which the appointment of public office and decisions involving the allocation of state resources are often the subject of speculation and mistrust. Against this historical and social background, the right to access information from public authorities must be jealously guarded and must not be allowed to be whittled down. Information requested must be provided unless refusal of access to information is expressly permitted by the Act, and the public authority provides adequate and intelligible reasons for refusal. The Court of Appeal has recently expressed the view that it should not be a bar to the disclosure of information relevant to the public interest that persons who participate in the decision-making process would be somehow inhibited in the performance of their duty by the fact that their deliberations would somehow see the light of day. Where the actions of high public officials are involved, especially where the persons or politicians, where the persons are politicians, the scales ought to weigh heavily in favor of disclosure, as non-disclosure will always be tainted by the perception of a public authority seeking to protect those who are seen as untouchable. The rule of law, the Constitution, and the laws of our country are designed to prevent such occurrences and to subject those who hold high political public office to a higher level of public scrutiny. The upholding of these principles by the disclosure of deliberations that are conducted in the public interest will only serve to strengthen our democracy and build the confidence in the institutions that are charged with the carrying out of public functions. Where wrongdoing has occurred, it must be exposed. And if there is no wrongdoing, those against whom allegations of wrongdoings have been made ought to be vindicated in the public domain. Both of these twin objectives would be achieved by disclosure of the report of the Board of Inquiry in this matter. Over the past 48 hours, there have been conflicting reports in the media of the findings of the Board of Inquiry in this matter. This has led to speculation and conjecture by members of the public, and already public sentiments have been expressed that there is an attempt at a cover-up by the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force. The Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force is too important an institution to our democracy to be allowed to be subjected to this type of public criticism. It is an institution in which the public must have confidence, and all must be done to instill and restore that confidence. Disclosure of the report of the inquiry will surely achieve this. There can be no justifiable and sufficiently essential public interest considerations of type or degree to support non-disclosure of the report of the board inquiry in this matter. It may be worth considering, in making a decision in this matter, the hallowed words of Justice of Appeal Jamada in the JCC appeal, where he stated that whereas freedom, transparency, and accountability are the hallmarks of participatory democracy, secrecy lies at the heart of dictatorships. I trust your discretion will be exercised in favor of making disclosure of the requested report. The actual schedule, Section 13, Freedom of Information Act, requests for access to official documents pursuant to Section 13. I have that document. It says, request for a copy of the report of the Board of Inquiry, which was convened by the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force in October 2016, following the media releases and publication of what appears to be pictures of children handling high-powered weapons belonging to the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force at dates and places unknown, and the circumstances surrounding such allegations. That inquiry was responded to by the Army. This is where the problem arises. Because in what you're about to hear, there is evidence now in the public space that this document signed by the Chief of Defense Force is untrue. And that persons named in this document, in this release, that is a response to a Freedom of Information inquiry, that is also a board of inquiry into wrongdoing at an army base undertaken by the Defense Force, may be built on fabrications and lies. Dear Senator Sturge, request for a copy of the report of the Board of Inquiry, which was convened by Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force in October 2016, following the media releases. Right, you know that. Reference A. Letter dated 27 March 2017. The Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force acknowledges receipt of your letter and thanks you for the interest you have demonstrated concerning the related Board of Inquiry, as indicated in the subject headed above. In your letter, you requested to be provided with a copy of the Board of Inquiry report, and at paragraph 3, you specifically requested answers to 6 questions. In essence, the Board of Inquiry was convened. I want you to listen to all the words and the words that they have chosen to use, because we are going to have to take apart this entire document now. We're going to take this apart over the next couple of days because people are going to have a couple of questions to answer based on this and based on another document that you're going to hear right after. In essence, the Board of Inquiry was convened to investigate whether 2 persons and photographs circulating in the media on or around 10th October 2015 were handling what appeared to be weapons belonging to the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force. The Defense Force has given due consideration to your request and wishes to advise that on completion, the Board of Inquiry... Hold 1 second, I have to read this message. Trying to do a million things one time. After I read this, I am going to read former Chief of Defense Staff Kenrick Marage's release that he put out today, refuting everything that you're going to hear. In essence, the Board of Inquiry was convened to investigate whether 2 persons in photographs, you heard that part. The Defense Force has given due consideration to your request and wishes to advise that on completion, the Board of Inquiry's record of proceedings, the report, was presented to the Chief of Defense Staff as a top secret document. This classification was given as the report contains secret and sensitive information, delicate aspects of the organization's combat tactics, techniques, and procedures, vulnerabilities, and the identities and duties performed by persons who are actively involved in protecting national leaders and conducting operations against criminals, potential terrorists, and other similarly intended operatives. Hence, to place such a report in the public domain would severely jeopardize individual and organizational security and, by extension, weaken the security of the nation. A Board of Inquiry is therefore a performance-focused internal investigation established for the purpose of determining the circumstances. Sorry for the errors there. I have a scanned copy that I'm reading. Surrounding an occurrence and whether improvements are required to the organization's systems, processes, and procedures. Therefore, it is for such reasons that a Board of Inquiry is an exempt document pursuant to Section 25(1) and 2 of the Freedom of Information Act, Chapter 2202 of the revised laws of Trinidad and Tobago. The Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force, though, is cognizant of the public interest assessment that Section 35 of the Act requires it to perform. This section sets out that, notwithstanding any law to the contrary, a public authority shall give access to an exempt document where there is reasonable evidence that significant A. Abuse of authority or neglect in the performance of official duty, or B. Injustice to an individual, or C. Danger to the health or safety of an individual or of the public, or D. Unauthorized use of public funds has or is likely to have occurred, or in the circumstances giving access to the document is justified in the public interest, having regard both to any benefits and to any damage that may arise from doing so. In that regard, the Defense Force takes note of the concerns you have raised in the public interest and in particular, the perception that could be formed in the absence of any level of disclosure. Recognizing also the responsible leadership position you hold as a senator in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force on this occasion is willing to provide you with the responses to the questions you raised. The Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force is of the opinion that this position will sufficiently satisfy your request for information while not compromising the state of the organization's security. However, do note that the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force, in sharing this information, feels sufficiently assured that you will treat this information with the confidentiality it deserves and in the spirit in which it is shared. Hereunder are your questions and the attendant responses. Question 1. Did the children of the Attorney General attend an army base under the jurisdiction of the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force with their father? Answer 1. Based on the evidence adduced, the inquiry established that on the 31st of October 2015, the Attorney General's children accompanied him to the Trinidad and Tobago's Regiment Camuto Barracks. The Attorney General was invited by the TDF to witness a tactical display so that he would become familiar with the set actions of a security team may have to employ in the event of an incident. I want to say this to you. There is a lot to read here. So I'm only going to read the part that takes us to this issue where we have a conflict of reasons. Question 4 asks, whether persons in the defense force were coerced into breaching settled practice and procedure because of the individuals involved. Answer 4. It was established that the former Chief of Defense Staff, Major General Kenrick Maraj, acting on his own volition, authorized the range practice. This practice is a standard procedure which is offered to all high-risk national leaders who come under the protection of members of the Defense Forces Special Operations Elements. Consequently, there was no evidence that any member of the Defense Force was coerced into breaching any practice or procedure. This document, we can refer to it again as we go, was signed by the Chief of Defense Staff, Brigadier Smart. This was put into the public today by Major General Kenrick Maraj. I want to read that answer to you again. The answer to question 4 says, it was established that the former Chief of Defense Staff, Major General Kenrick Maraj, acting on his own volition, authorized the range practice. This is what Major General Kenrick Maraj put in the public space this afternoon. I have taken note of articles published in the mainstream media on Sunday, 4th June 2017 on the subject at caption, matter in relation to photographs of children handling weapons allegedly belonging to the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force. I received information on 26 April 2017, I received information that the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force submitted a response to a request for information under the Freedom of Information Act on a highly publicized matter allegedly involving children of the current Attorney General, the Honorable Faris Al-Rawi. The submission signed by the Chief of Defense Staff, Brigadier General Rodney Smart, on 25th April 2017, provided information purporting to be extracts from a board of inquiry which was conducted into the circumstances surrounding children of the Attorney General being photographed with high-powered weapons during a range firing practice at Camuto Barracks on 31st October 2015. I communicated with Brigadier General Rodney Smart, listen to the words, Chief of Defense Staff via telephone on 27 April 2017, voicing my concerns about the erroneous contents of the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force response and the damaging effects it would have should this document enter the public domain. I trusted that Brigadier General Smart would have taken corrective action. The Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force document sought to answer questions raised by the requesting party, opposition Senator and Attorney at Law Mr. Wayne Sturge. In his request, Senator Sturge listed a number of questions pertaining to the alleged incident and sought to determine, now this is a release in the public space now, it should be on all the news by tonight, tomorrow, sought to determine whether Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force personnel committed any breaches in respect of the apparent handling of military weapons by civilian underage personnel, namely the children of the Attorney General. Senator Sturge also sought confirmation on the part of the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force on whether the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force personnel treated the children preferentially and whether there were rewards received accordingly. For the records, allow me to confirm the following. I just want to say one more time, before I read that, the answer to question 4, whether persons in the defense force were coerced into breaching settled practice and procedure because of the individuals involved. The answer from the document signed by the current chief of the defense staff says, answer 4, it was established that the former chief of defense staff, Major General Kenrick Maraj, acting on his own volition, authorized the range practice. This is Major General Kenrick Maraj's response. For the records, allow me to confirm the following. I did not authorize the range practice that was conducted at Kamuto Barracks on 31st October 2015 and which was attended by the Attorney General Faris Arawi and members of his family. I did not invite the Attorney General to any military base to attend any range firing activity on 31st October 2015 or at any other time during my tour of duty as Chief of Defense Staff. I did not have any communications with the Attorney General on this matter at any time. I was not at Kamuto Barracks on 31st October 2015, and I am not aware who would have received the Attorney General and his family at that military installation on that day and what protocols were observed accordingly. I was never requested to testify before the Board of Inquiry convened by the Defense Force in relation to this matter. I was never contacted by the Chief of Defense Staff, Brigadier General Rodney Smart, in order to offer information or advice on this matter. One of the questions raised in the Freedom of Information request was whether persons in the Defense Force were coerced into breaching settled practice and procedures because of the individuals concerned. The TTDF, the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force response indicated that it was established that the former Chief of Defense Staff, Major General Kenrick Maraj, acting on his own volition, authorized the range practice. Listen to what the former Chief of Defense Staff, Major General Maraj, said. Given the context of this particular situation, this statement can reasonably be interpreted to mean authorization for any or all activities in relation to the matter under scrutiny, including the issue of children handling weapons on the range at Kamuto Barracks on the day in question. I am gravely concerned from a position of absolute denial in granting such authorization that I was not informed of testimony to that effect in the Board of Inquiry, and therefore a fundamental requirement for me to attend the Board of Inquiry to confirm or deny such an allegation or accusation. See where we are? Notwithstanding this, it is noted that the statement acting on his own volition is language commonly associated with the criminal law environment and therefore has negative connotations in this regard. It is highly unusual to ascribe such language to the decision-making process of a Chief of Defense Staff, and so leaves one to wonder in the circumstances if there were any underlying intent to cause mischief by the person who drafted the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force response to Senator Sturge. Even if a Chief of Defense Staff exercises his initiative in any given instance, his ultimate decision is usually based on staff advice, feasibility, suitability, etc., and the subsequent execution by personnel down the chain of command. I am also, this thing gets worse, I am also deeply concerned that the disturbingly misleading statements made in the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force response carry the potential to do serious harm to the character and reputation of Major General Maraj. I am further very troubled by the failure on the part of Brigadier Smart to exercise due diligence, as was his duty as the appropriate superior authority in the Trinidad and Tobago Defence Force, in not reviewing the Board of Inquiry and determining on the basis of any testimony, if such testimony indeed exists, implicating the former Chief of Defence Staff. Why was the President of the Board of Inquiry not advised on the requirements for procedural justice by arranging for my appearance before the Board of Inquiry? This man was tried and convicted and he didn't know. The Trinidad and Tobago Defence Force response further mentions Major General Kenrick Maraj in answer to another question in the Freedom of Information request, one that could arguably point to misconduct in public office. The question: were children of high-ranking government officials treated in a preferential manner by persons in the Trinidad and Tobago Defence Force, and what were the rewards for such treatment? A rather tediously lengthy response to this question ended with stating that there was no need for General Maraj or any other member of the Defence Force to be rewarded for what is standard practice in the Trinidad and Tobago Defence Force and likewise amongst other military establishments. The statement is again arguably open for interpretation that can be unfavorable in respect of Major General Maraj. The implications are further exacerbated when one observes that the only person named in the entire Trinidad and Tobago Defence Force document is Major General Kenrick Maraj. They hang this man out to dry. They hang this man out to dry. Given the widespread public attention and interest in the matter involving the children of the Attorney General being photographed handling Trinidad and Tobago Defence Force weapons, one can reasonably infer from the Trinidad and Tobago Defence Force submission to Senator Wayne Sturge that there may have been some level of condonation by senior persons for the obvious breach of range security procedures. An even greater concern was whether there was any contravention of relevant sections of Act 14 of 1996, an act to prohibit the training, drilling, and equipping, I read this to you all earlier, on equipping of persons with firearms, ammunition, artillery, and the practice of military exercise otherwise than permitted under written law. As a former Chief of Defence Staff, that is a concern of mine, one which remains unresolved in this matter. I wish to further state that during my tour of duty as Chief of Defence Staff, I have never received requests for, nor authorized similar visits or activities for past very important persons, such as the Chief Justice, past Cabinet Ministers, or past Attorneys General, or members of their family, to any similar type of range activity. The entire response from the Trinidad and Tobago Defence Force is built on statements that Kenrick Maraj, former Chief of Defence Staff, is saying is untrue. They said that this is standard operating practice. He says it isn't. I wish to clarify, though, that these types of engagements are legitimate and feasible on the condition that right protocols are observed and that there are no breaches of standard operating procedures and range safety standards. Moreover, I find it worrying that the Trinidad and Tobago Defence Force response to the Freedom of Information request failed to address the central issue pertaining to this matter, and that was the specific point of contention, that being children in possession of military weapons as displayed in the photograph. Who permitted that particular breach of range safety standards? Who was the range conducting officer at the time? Who supervised the activities on that day? In view of the concerns raised, I have requested the following from the Chief of Defence Staff. Now, this is from Major General Kenrick Maraj, who is the former Chief of Defence Staff, who is now requesting of the current Chief of Defence Staff all statements in the Trinidad and Tobago Defence Force response to the Freedom of Information request in this matter, in which Major General Maraj is named, be retracted and an amended document prepared and resubmitted to Wayne Sturge. Senator Wayne Sturge. An official public statement guided by the pursuit of truth and based on the facts be made by the Defence Force to undo the hurt caused to Major General Kenrick Maraj and members of his family circle in light of this painful and unfortunate but avoidable faux pas. Consideration be given to a comprehensive review of the Board of Inquiry conducted in this matter, with specific focus on the terms of reference required to guide its deliberation, including the central issue of who was responsible for the handing over of military weapons to unauthorized children during a range firing practice at Kamuto Barracks on 31st of October. We still do not know who put those guns in the Attorney General's children's hands. I conclude with the recommendation that when matters such as the one in question, with high political sensitivities and public interest, have to be addressed by the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force, the organization should not engage in compromise in respect of its professional ethics and proper procedure. This man not pulling his punches. Greater attention should have been given to procedural accuracy, the judicious use of language, as well as exercising greater prudence in treating with a former Chief of Defense Staff. As of this, tonight, the Chief of Defense Staff should be stripped of his post and prosecuted for misbehavior in public office. The Attorney General should be made to stand down. This matter has now become an issue of serious attempts at cover-up. And now that a freedom of information request for information of a board of inquiry were both based on open fabrications, according to the former Chief of Defense Staff, Kenrick Maraj, someone else needs to initiate that investigation where the army is concerned. I am dialing Gary Griffith's number because I know Gary Griffith is watching this. And I want Gary Griffith, if he answers the phone, I don't know if he will take the call. We do not have a prearranged arrangement. I do not know if he will take the call. If he takes the call, the question I am going to ask Gary Griffith as a captain of the army and a former Minister of National Security is, where do we go from here? Because we know, and this is a very sensitive issue. You're hearing the phone ringing, so I do not think Gary is interested in taking this call and answering on this issue right now. It's a serious matter. A very serious matter. A very serious matter. This is not time for politics. This is not time for politics. This is time for the rule of law to take precedence. Did the Attorney General break the law? Did others break the law? Now that this matter has been manhandled and mishandled as badly as it has been done, have members of the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force broken further laws in pursuant of what is appearing to be a high-level cover-up? Gary Griffith, if you're watching this, Trinidad would like some guidance, feel free to give me a call. It is time for Trinidad and Tobago. Like, what is going on right now with the judiciary? I spoke to a former independent senator today, and we spoke at length. The major problem in this country now is that Trinidadians need to stop being so lackadaisical when it comes to issues such as these. We need now, as a people, to start asking for systems, proper systems be put in place for everything, including the right to fire members of parliament who do not perform. This is a country where we elect people to office and appoint them to office and they hold on to that office for life. We need to change that. We need to make accountability and responsibility the watchwords of any public office holder and service to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Because any job and any position that is spoken into existence by the words of the supreme law of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, the Constitution of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, or any law that relies on that document, the Constitution of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, to be valid, we must be in a position as a people to demand that all and every position, every appointment be built on respect for the rule of law and service to the people. Yes, we have a couple minutes to kill. the actual time, because the show we usually do an hour long. But this one is not a playful show, so I can't make any jokes for you tonight. We have to take this very seriously. Because I said earlier, we have a Chief Justice who is refusing to resign, even though the law fraternity have expressed no confidence in him. And he's saying we can expect no resignation. So what happens now? We had a lawyer sentenced for attempting to murder his secretary. On a retrial, he was sentenced again. We have a situation where now an attorney general, questions now have to be asked. Is he involved in the conspiracy to cover up this matter? And again, why didn't he just come clean in the very beginning? Because Trinidadians, for our lackadaisical way, would have let it go. No! Now, besides the initial law breaking, we have the cover up to deal with as well. This cannot continue. Business as usual does not apply here. Trinidad and Tobago, pay attention to what is going on. We need changes, systemic changes up and down the governance food chain in this country. And that is not going to happen until you say so. Yes? Thanks a lot for all of you here tonight. See you all tomorrow, Monday at 8 o'clock for our regular shows. This was a special edition dealing with this issue. Let's see where this goes from here. Now this too is in the public space. Yes? Good night, Trinidad and Tobago. Stay safe.